Hello and welcome back to the last episode of Carnivore Goes for Gold. I'm Caitlin Orr, Carnivore on Instagram, and this is a recap of my 101 Days, 101 Restaurants Challenge. So if you've watched to this point, you've probably seen my reviews of all the 101 best restaurants in LA, according to LA Times food critic and Pulitzer Prize winning writer Jonathan Gold. So now I have tried the best restaurants in LA. That is a crazy thing to say. And this was a pretty tough challenge. People have tried to do his list before. He comes out with a new one every year, so many people try and go and probably succeed in going to all of his 101 restaurants in a year. But I think I was the most ambitious or crazy, whatever you want to call it, person to try to go to all 101 in 101 days. That was a little bit nuts. First of all, didn't expect to travel so much during these 3 months. I had quite a few trips come up. I went to New York, I went to Texas, I went to San Francisco for different food opportunities and work, and so I lost some days on those trips and then had to make up for it and eat. I think the most restaurants I did in a day was either 3 or 4. I think I did 4 in one day. But I tried to stick to one a day. Sometimes I did 2. That was crazy. I just didn't realize how much of a time. You think like 1 a day, that's not so bad, but I live in Long Beach, so I'm not even close to most of these restaurants. It's a drive every time. And then the trips, I got sick. There was a few days that I just wasn't feeling up to going because I was under the weather. Just so many obstacles I didn't really think through. I didn't budget the project. I just jumped in. I didn't think about how much this would cost. Obviously, it was pretty expensive. I will get to that later. I calculated all these details for those interested. A lot of people were asking, how much did this cost? All these things. A lot of money. But this was the most challenging, but the most rewarding project I have ever done. I feel just completely reinvigorated, so inspired by LA, my hometown. Feel so much more knowledgeable now about our chefs here, our restaurants. I can confidently recommend places, all different types of cuisines, and this is all thanks to Jonathan's fantastic list, which was my crash course into LA cuisine. It was, my jumping off point, and now I have places to say, it's just such a diverse list, all different kinds of price ranges, from taco trucks to really fancy, really expensive tasting menus, all different types of cuisines all over LA, not just in one pocket, everything from Van Nuys to Orange County to the West Side, Santa Monica area. A lot of driving, but the best way to explore Los Angeles and get connected with my hometown, to learn, just the most rewarding project. And I highly recommend you try to go to all these restaurants as well if you're interested. I learned so much. I met so many amazing chefs, so many amazing people in the restaurant industry who were so supportive of me. I can't thank my family and friends enough. I can't thank the strangers who went out to eat with me. Just so cool. I got to make friends on this project, food-loving friends who were like, yeah, I want to go eat at one of these restaurants with you. And that was just so awesome. It's always amazing to meet like-minded foodies who just live to eat like I do. And of course, inspired by Jonathan's beautiful words about all these restaurants that just carved the way for me. So thank you, Jonathan. You're such an inspiration. And now I'm gonna say some of my favorites from the list. Of course, there were a few spots on the list, only a couple that I didn't love. For the most part, I felt every restaurant deserved to be on the list. So talented, so hardworking, so humble, and just incredible food. But of course, there were a few that stood out to me, some favorites, and this is just my personal opinion, my taste. And of course, I only went to these restaurants one time each, and I know Jonathan goes to them several times before reviewing them, so this is in no way trumping his list or saying that I know better than anyone here. These are just some of my favorite dishes and some of my favorite experiences, dining experiences overall from the list. I had quite a few favorites. It's hard to narrow it down, but I'm just gonna go quickly through them because so many of you were asking which ones were my favorite from the project. So I've already said in the last video, if you saw my full review of Vespertine, that was my absolute favorite from the list. Number one on Jonathan's list, number one on mine as well, a surreal dining experience. Go back an episode if you missed it and you want to hear all about that tasting menu and culinary art project that is Vespertine. It was one of the most expensive ones on the list, probably the most expensive as well, and just incredible. So for tasting menus, Vespertine and Naka. And Naka is the one who has the Chef's Table episodes, the hardest reservation in LA, and that was my other favorite tasting menu from this project. So if you're looking for a special occasion place, if you're a huge food lover and you love the chefs, you love the art, and you have some money to burn, I would go to Vespertine and Naka. Those were my two favorite tasting menus from the project. Then a couple of my favorite dinner spots. These are just some that I loved from the project, the overall experience and food as well. So Irenia in Santa Ana, which is a modern Filipino restaurant. This is in downtown Santa Ana. This one was one of my favorites overall from the dinner. It made me fall in love with Filipino food, and I really hadn't had much exposure to Filipino food before this project. And then there were a couple other spots on this list that were good, but Irenia was my favorite Filipino and one of my favorite dinners in general. So if you're in the Orange County, definitely check out Irenia. I loved their pork belly adobo and the dinuguan, butchering that, but that was the pork shoulder with the pork blood. Those were my favorite. Same room for the ube pie. You can check out the full review and previous episodes for all these restaurants, but these are just some of my tops. Then another favorite was Rosaline, which is in West Hollywood, and this is Peruvian cuisine. Ricardo Zarate is amazing, and I loved the paella, the pisco sour, just such a great meal there, beautiful ambiance, and fantastic food. I really loved every dish we tried. Ooh, the ceviche, so good too. Another favorite for dinner was Guelaguetza. This is Oaxacan cuisine, again, another type of food that I really hadn't had much of before. So the Oaxacan cheese was fantastic. The tlayuda, which is like a Mexican pizza with like beans and cheese on top and all these meats on top too, that was great. But they're also known for their moles, and I loved their moles. They had like a festival of mole that was a mole flight. That was one of my favorite things, just so unique and really fun environment, really like down to earth, laid back Mexican restaurant. So Guelaguetza. And then Night and Market Song, which is Thai in Silver Lake. That was one of my favorite dinners as well. They had really good Thai food. They had a fantastic fried chicken sandwich, like the best fried chicken sandwich I've had, so good. And then their coconut sticky rice is the best dessert. So cute Silver Lake spot, so hard to get, and there's always a wait, but it's worth it. You should definitely check out all those restaurants for dinner. Some of my favorite brunch spots from the list, Republique, that's always been one of my favorites. It's just the most beautiful indoor atrium, communal table. Pastries are fantastic, the best French toast in the world. So good, it's on La Brea. This is just one of my classic LA restaurants, one of my favorites always. So it's still, after eating all these ones on the list, it still held its spot for me as one of my favorites. Another favorite brunch was Squirrel. This was another one I loved before the list too, and continue to love after trying it. Again, great French toast, great ricotta toast on thick brioche ricotta and jam slathered on top, and then her sorrel pesto rice bowl, which has an egg. You can add bacon, some of the best bacon, just really delicious. Jessica Coslow is fantastic, and that's in Silver Lake as well. So Squirrel is great. Odium, I loved Odium's brunch. Haven't been for dinner yet, but their brunch was so creative. Chef Timothy Hollingsworth was just really changing the game. Like, these were beautiful pieces of art. You don't think of brunch typically as creative as dinner. It can be easier to make, but these dishes, there was like this pork belly French toast dish that was off the menu. just stunning. Came out with in like its own little oven, and they're just little squares of French toast mixed with little squares of pork belly, just so stunning. There was also a foie gras funnel cake that was just so beautiful too. They're just very creative, one of the most creative brunches I've had. So that's a fantastic one in downtown LA. And another one in downtown LA that I loved for brunch was Manuela, which is more southern. So they had really fantastic cornbread, pancakes, pastries, cinnamon rolls, BLTs, egg dishes, gorgeous space. I love, 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 love the space at Manuela. There's like an outdoor garden area. It's just great vibes. Loved their brunch too. So those are my favorite brunches. Next, a couple favorite burgers from the list. Petit Trois, Chef Ludo, amazing French spot. Love all his French bistro food there, but the burger is probably my favorite. And then Animal also was home to one of my other favorite burgers in LA. That's a bone marrow burger. Really, really tasty. My favorite pasta restaurants in LA are Rossoblu and Angelini. And yeah, Rossoblu is super, super new, trendy, arts district, so great. Angelini's super old school. It's been around forever in Hollywood. It's got a huge fan following. It's just classic. So I love both the modern and the classic. Fantastic pastas. Check out both of those. My favorite sushi was at Q Sushi, and it's also the most money I've ever spent on sushi. So is there a correlation there? Probably. The quality was superb. I only went for lunch, which was the abbreviated tasting menu, but when I have some more money to burn, I definitely want to go check out the dinner as well, just to get that longer omakase. Okay, then some just random dishes from the list that I just loved, that stood out, that were just some favorites. Salt's Cure, their pork chop and their pancakes blew my mind. The best pork chop I've ever had, and some of the best pancakes too. So just those were fantastic. The best pastrami I've ever had was at Langer's, and I went to Katz's when I was in New York, and there's this, you know, bi-coastal rivalry, Langer's, LA versus Katz's. Langer's is better. You've heard it before, you'll hear it again. The fight will go on forever. I'm Team Langer's, so get this pastrami sandwich, number 19. It's the best, the best. We're so lucky to have it. My favorite seafood in LA is at Holbox, Chichen Itza, which is Chef Gilberto's spot at Mercado La Paloma, which is near USC. This Yucatecan, he has the seafood counter, and then he has the more like meaty side, which Chichen Itza, which existed first, and then Holbox opened this year. But I don't always love seafood, and this place and this chef really made me fall in love with it. The octopus tacos were fantastic. Jonathan Gold loves the blood clams. The ceviche was great. But my favorite, I think, was the whole wood-fired branzino. I never ever like rave about a fish, and I'd eaten like 5 other dishes myself before this fish came out, and I still ate most of this fish myself. So gotta give it credit. It's so good. Go check it out downtown, near downtown LA. Oh, another one, the chicken dorawat from Meals by Genet, which is an Ethiopian restaurant. I hadn't had Ethiopian food before, so it's on the injera, you know, Ethiopian bread crepe thing. And then the chicken dorawat is the chicken stew that's in the middle, and it was surrounded by a veggie sampler, and you kind of take the injera and you throw it down, you pick up the pieces of the chicken. This was one of the most unique dishes I tried because I hadn't had Ethiopian before, so it's one that really stood out to me from this list. My favorite steak that I've ever had, and also from this list, was at Cut by Wolfgang Puck. It's his steakhouse. I reviewed that whole restaurant a couple episodes back, so go back if you want a full review, but go spend some money, you know, burn that cash on really quality steak. It will be worth it at least once in your life. You have to try like the most expensive, best steak ever. It is worth it. It will change your life. So get that Japanese Wagyu and just enjoy it. Just let it melt in your mouth. It's so good. My favorite pizza in LA is from Pizzana, which is the brand new spot from Chef Daniele Uditi. It's in Brentwood. It's so good. This is one of my favorite all-time restaurants now in LA. The Cacio e Pepe pizza is my favorite. It is so good, so creamy, so cheesy. But everything he makes there is fantastic. Like even just the starters, like artichoke hearts, everything is so good. It's all like in the wood-fired pizza oven. It's all cooked there. And their dessert from Candace Nelson of sprinkles is so good too. So this place, my favorite pizza, but also just a great overall restaurant. It even like rivals some of my pizza spots in New York. So that's saying something. I mean, he came from Italy, so can't wait to go to Italy myself and try the, you know, super authentic spot he used to work at before. After pizza, I loved the flaky bread at Kismet. Kismet was a really cute, trendy spot, really delicious, healthy, like Turkish food. Everything was good, but the flaky bread was like, I would go back just to eat that. So that's one of my favorite dishes from the project. Even though it was a little bit overpriced for my liking, I would have liked more flaky bread, but maybe that's me just being greedy because I just wanted more flaky bread. It's so good. It's so good. I want some now. I also loved the butter chicken at Mayura. Wow, this like made me really appreciate Indian food. It was, my sister and I were fighting each other over this dish. I mean, you can watch me describe it in detail back in the episodes, but just this butter chicken is so good. So good. And then finally, one of my last favorite dishes from the whole 101 list was the galbi jim at Sun Nong Dan in Koreatown. Oh my gosh, like I didn't even think I liked Korean food. I cannot stop craving this place. It's this huge bubbling stew of like beef short rib, onions, kimchi, sauce. They put cheese on top. They light the cheese on fire. This is one of the best things I've eaten all year. I'd never had anything like it. Maybe I just lived under a rock and you all have had this dish, but if you haven't, go eat it because your life will change. It was so good. And also bring like 4 people with you because it's huge. We got the small and it was huge. We didn't finish it with 4 people. But it's so tasty. There was like an hour-long line. This dish is worth it. You must go to Koreatown. So good. So those were some of my favorites. I know I just listed like half of the list basically. That's how good this whole list is though in general. But these were just some of my favorites that I just like can't stop craving. Everything, every restaurant, every chef is so deserving, so hardworking, so awesome that they're on this list. And I mean, obviously I have some of my own LA restaurants that are my personal favorites that aren't on the list too. So if you want to see what those spots are, you can go to my website to see some more of my personal favorite LA spots. But in terms of this list, it's just so cool. I just learned so much from this list, and I guess the biggest takeaways were how much respect chefs have for Jonathan Gold, and in return, how much respect he has for them. And it's just this mutual appreciation that just works, and it creates this beautiful, safe place for chefs to experiment and try and be creative and push themselves without fear of rejection or, you know, critique. Like obviously Jonathan Gold critiques, but he doesn't do so in such a negative way that they're scared to try. I feel like in general, most of the chefs that I met and talked with about Jonathan were just so inspired by him, and just it's just beautiful. Like I don't think there is another critic in the world who's as respected as he is, and I think it's with good reason, because he trusts these chefs and he gives them the opportunity to try and to experiment. And he'll go to strip malls, he'll go to fine dining restaurants, he'll drive over an hour to eat some intestines that he's heard are fantastic. Like he's not afraid to try anything. He's not afraid to give people chances. He doesn't care about, you know, appearance or ambiance. Like of course those are all nice things, but he loves food and he loves it so much, and it just trumps all for him. And I think he's the perfect person to show LA what is out there. And it's just, I mean, I just have so much respect for him, and so do the chefs. Like it was so amazing. Some of the best takeaways were hearing the stories that the chefs and owners were telling me about making the list again. And they never take it for granted. They're so humble and they're so grateful to him every year for including them on the list. So they showed me like messages and emails they sent him just thanking him, how grateful they were. how much they look up to him, other owners telling me stories about how grateful they are for Jonathan and what his reviews have done for their family, for their restaurant. Like, they have survived in America because of him. Like, he has an incredible amount of power here in LA, but he doesn't take it lightly. He knows, you know, it's a huge responsibility to bear, and it's just, I think he's just navigating that world so well, and it's amazing. He's really taught me so much, and just even non-foodies, non-food lovers can read his reviews and laugh at some comparison he's making, and then want to go try a restaurant because of him. So he's bringing in people who don't even know food. It's so beautiful. But yeah, I expanded my palate so much. I hadn't tried a lot of these cuisines before. I'd never had Ethiopian food. I didn't have a lot of Korean food before. I'd never had Sichuan Chinese food, that like numbing spice. And now I love these things. A lot of the dishes that like I would never have known if it weren't for his list. So I'm just so grateful for everything that's taught me personally, and I can see the larger impact it's had on LA. So I can't wait to next year when the new list comes out. Definitely want to try the new additions to the list and see how things have changed. Of course, I'm already going back to some of my favorites from the list. But it's insane. I ate at 101 restaurants in 101 days. So to give you some data on that, since you were curious, that means I drove an average of 60 miles a day because I live in Long Beach. So it's about 30 miles to LA, 30 miles back. So 60 miles a day. So I calculated that I drove over 6,000 miles on this project. And that means I spent $1,000 on gas alone. And this is not even talking about parking. Like, if you think about meter parking, valet parking, I tried to avoid all that, and I rarely spent money on parking for this project, but it all adds up. So if you spend like $5 on parking at each restaurant, luckily I didn't, but that would have been like $500 right there. So $1,000 on gas, limited money on parking. And then I calculated, I saved all my receipts, and I spent over $5,000 on food for this project. So obviously some of the restaurants and chefs were so supportive and kind enough to, comp some of the meals or send out some dishes. That was so grateful. Every time that they did that, it really, like, every dollar counted. It really was appreciated. And sometimes my family took me to a meal, or a friend, a family friend, or a date. So I didn't pay for every single meal, obviously, on this project, but I still spent $5,000 on food, $1,000 on gas. So this wasn't, it wasn't a cheap project. It was something I should have budgeted first, but I couldn't be more grateful for what I've learned. Like, it was so worth the investment for me. It was basically like a college course in LA dining, and I got to eat the whole time. So, it's not like I was just paying for a textbook. I was paying for the reviews, the knowledge, meeting these chefs, making these connections with these people, talking to them, getting that like one-on-one FaceTime, having some of the best food in LA. So it was worth every penny. And obviously, like, I gained weight during the project too. I had to work out every day to balance out all the eating. I've never eaten out so much in my life. And I emailed Jonathan Gold during this project, and he even said, like, I eat out a lot, but not as much as you, apparently. So that's pretty hilarious that for these 3 months, I was eating out more than our LA Times food critic. It was an insane amount of eating out. And some nights I just wanted to come home and sit on the couch and like make food at home, not eat at a restaurant. Who am I kidding? I love eating out. I love these restaurants and these chefs. It was the most creative and inspiring project I've ever completed, and I can't wait to check out the new restaurants next year. Also, it's totally inspired me to do a new list. I don't know. I'm toying with the idea of doing the world's 50 best restaurant list. That one would be pretty pricey. I'll have to budget that one out before I learned my lesson this time. So if you have any ideas about which list I should do, please give me a comment. It could be nationwide, it could be a specific city, could be international. I am so excited. This has, just really opened my eyes to the culinary world again, re-inspired me, and I'm just so grateful to Jonathan. So thank you, Jonathan Gold. Thank you to all the chefs, all the restaurants, everybody who came and ate with me, everybody who commented suggestions, what dishes to try, everybody for following along on this insane project. And keep following along on Carnivore on Instagram. And I'm headed to Europe for my backpacking trip, so I'll be eating my way through Europe and Italy, and hopefully checking off some of the world's 50 best restaurants. So thanks for watching. Thank you so much for being part of this project with me. And yeah, stay tuned on Instagram and YouTube, and more restaurants to come, more restaurants to eat at. Thanks for watching.